In this video, we're going to jump back into training. We're going to do some Fieldcraft. How to halt an enemy's counterattack after you have ambushed them. Now, here's our little scenario. We have a trail up in the mountains or in the woods. The trail skirts along a creek or stream. Neither side is using anti-personnel mines or booby traps. So our enemy force has no problems in this case with using these trails to get around because it's rather thick woods otherwise. So they use this in order to move through faster. Now, we found out that a patrol is going to be coming up on this one particular trail. So we've decided to set in an ambush. And we set in an ambush in here inside the tree line. We got some grass here mixed in on the edge with the trees. With the stream right here on the other side of the stream, it would be more of the same. It would be tall grass and trees. So this old established trail is here. It is a dirt trail. Now, we do not have any indicators out giving the enemy a warning that an ambush has been put in. We have not put in any booby traps, tripwires, or warning devices on the trail. I'm not going to give you the specifics how to set up an ambush. You know, there should be lots of videos out there on it. It's not extremely complicated. But the ambush gets initiated. You open fire on the enemy on the trail, catching them in the open. Their immediate response to break an ambush to get out of the kill zone is typically turn towards the enemy, pour in as much a heavy fire as you can, and toss grenades and charge into the ambush to try to break the ambush if it is a close ambush. Close ambush is within grenade range, maybe a little bit past that. So say within 20 to 25 meters of your kill zone. So they're charging through. Depending on the number of people on either side will determine what's going to happen and also how much accurate fire you're putting in there. But when the initial ambush was opened up, our squad automatic rifleman took out the radio operator and the person that was standing right next to the radio operator, which would be potentially the leadership of that patrol. It could be an officer, could be an NCO. Your squad designated marksman took out the machine gunner, put a bullet through his head, and then when the assistant gunner tried picking up the machine gun, took him out. Your other riflemen in here and your other saw gunners, if you have any, and your machine gunners are concentrating on the infantry that were on the trail. Machine gunners open up on any groups, so 2 or more, concentrates on taking them out, but does not ignore that target of opportunity. If you get one person jumping up on the flank, charging to you, cut him down quick, and then go back to concentrating on the groups. But they were stunned in that initial second, hit the ground. Now they're pouring into fire, they toss in grenades, and they're going to try charging in. How do you stop that from happening? How do you get the advantage to keep them in that kill zone longer? The longer they are in the kill zone, the higher their casualties are going to be and the lower your casualties are going to be. Because if the enemy can close that distance to you, your casualties will go up exponentially. Well, there's a few things that can be done, okay? This is not stuff that they teach in the military. This is stuff that I've gotten from other sources. One of those sources is, if I remember correctly, a movie called American Guerrilla in the Philippines. During that, it's about people getting trapped in the Philippines after the fall of Corregidor, after the fall of Bataan. And these US troops and Filipino troops do not want to give up, they want to keep fighting. Well, in there's a segment in the movie where they talk about what they do when they're starting up as a guerrilla force, some tactics they use against Japanese patrols. I'm also getting information from a book, if I remember correctly, it's something like The Last 100 Yards, the role of the non-commissioned officer in combat. I think the author is John Poole, if I remember correctly. I should have looked it up. I was going to before I did the video here, but I forgot to look it up. But combining the information from those two sources, this is a possible way that you can help keep your enemy in the kill zone. Now, in The Last 100 Yards, a recommendation in there for ambushers was on the side of the trail or the route that the enemy's using. Hide inside the grass, inside the bushes, a line of communications wire or some other type of wire. You want a stiff wire that's not going to break easily, so you're not going to use regular tripwire. You want stuff that's going to hold together when a person hits it at speed. It'll be strung, say, a foot off the ground. You want it below the person's knee. You want to hit them somewhere in the shin. You got to think about when they're running, they're going to be raising their legs higher as they're moving through. So you're going to want it closer to the knee, but you don't want it so high they're going to see it. You string that across next to the trail through the grass or whatever. You tie it off to posts or trees, depending on your setup. Figure no more than 3 to 4 meters between your anchor points. You go too farther than that, you increase the stress on the wire. It's going to break easier when your target starts hitting it. So tie it off in there. What'll happen then, as they're trying to get out of that kill zone to get to you, they're going to start running through, they're going to hit that tripwire, and they're going to fall. Now, some way that you can increase the casualties once they hit that wire, if you got enough grass and that stuff, you can hide punji stakes and pikes inside the grass, which is what we have here. We have taller grass, we have our stake with our communications wire here. The enemy comes in, they trip, they fall forward. Hidden inside the tall grass here is your punji stakes or your shortened pikes. And as they fall to the ground, they get impaled. Now normally your punji stakes are going to be, say, less than a foot in height. Figure some of these should be angled so that, and tall enough that if the enemy jumps over the communications wire, they still run right into the pike and impale themselves. Now you want these to basically be about waist height, maybe a little bit more. You don't want it so high where you're going to be hitting the body armor. You want to get them below the edge of the body armor where they're least protected. I know that may sound morbid to some people, because more than likely you're going to be impaling your enemy through the groin, which could be considered cruel and unusual. But that area is unprotected. It's below the body armor, it's below the sappy plates and all that. So they're running forward, they trip, they could fall on the shorter ones hidden closer into the wire. If they jump over that and they make it past all the punji stakes in here, they somehow make it through without stomping on one as they're running, hit some of the taller ones which are angled, and they get impaled through the gut. impaled through the thighs, impaled through the groin area, the hip area. Now in the last 100 yards, they're the ones that mentioned putting in the communications wire. They said by doing that, you trip the enemy, and as he's getting up off the ground, he's raising his head right into your field of fire. And then you're able to take him out easier. From American Guerrilla in the Philippines, the movie, what they shown in there, and I don't know if they did research into what was actually going on in the Philippines and that's where they got some of the stuff for the movie, or if it was just 1940s Hollywood. But what they talked about there, they would hide what would be poles, sharpened poles, pikes, and punji stakes in the grass on the sides of the trails. Now, this tactic, before you employ it, you need to observe the reactions of your enemy in an ambush. How do they counter it? What do they do? If you hit them on that trail, do they jump to the side, get some cover over here and try to fight back? They don't charge in. Or do they charge right in? Learn your enemy's tactics first before you try to counter them. Okay? If your enemy jumps back, well then maybe what you want to do over here, you'll seed this area with maybe some tripwires attached to grenades. Or, like from American Guerrilla in the Philippines, hide some of those sharpened stakes in the weeds, in the bushes and that stuff, and also on the ground. When they flop down on that embankment, they drop down right on top of punji stakes that they didn't see. You can camouflage punji stakes. If you're putting them on an embankment like this, maybe take some of the mud and that stuff that's in there and coat those stakes with it. Try to paint them with it so that maybe they won't see it. They'll be concentrating on the fire coming from this way. Maybe they won't notice those sticking out down there. Or if they see them sticking out, they'll just think it's just maybe some sticks caught in the embankment. It won't occur to them that, hey, that's a punji stake. This is just one option. Another thing could be when they're charging in, you have a line of claymores in here too. If you're going to break contact, they're pouring, this element was a lot larger, a lot stronger than you thought. They're charging at you. Your people need to break contact and get out of there. Have a string or a line of daisy chain claymores in here. As they're coming in, they're rushing in. The leader hits the clacker on the claymores, sets them off en masse. And then that's a signal to your people that as soon as those claymores go off, they fall back on their escape routes and they get out of there. That's another option. I really wouldn't put grenades on tripwires in here as they're charging forward unless you have like an instantaneous fuse like the VC would do on some of their grenades. Because you would want something that would detonate as soon as they hit it. And you would also want to make sure you are not in the kill zone of those booby traps when they go off. You want to make sure you got enough protection in front of you, you're dug in or whatever, you got enough piled logs in front of you, hidden sandbags, whatever, so that when those explosions go off in here, you're not going to be catching any fragments. So this is not a hasty ambush. This is a deliberate, this is planned. We knew the enemy was coming down this trail. We already had areas that we had pre-selected on that trail for potential ambush sites. Because of operating in that area, doing our own reconnaissance, we knew the area we're operating in. We picked a few likely spots. and we picked the one that would give us the best chance for escape and to give us the most advantage during the ambush. And we picked this particular area of the trail here. We then went through, we hit our communications wire in here, and while that's being strung, some of the other troops are putting in punji stakes and spikes. Now when you do this, I'll mention this, you need to have safety lanes going through there, or open lanes through the spikes and stakes, and those need to be marked on your side, because you're going to want to move forward into the kill zone afterwards. Maybe these people are dug in down here now, or at least hidden down in here, that you have to assault forward to take them out. So you're going to need those open lanes through that obstacle, through those punji stakes and stuff. And you're going to have to send your people down those lanes to take out your target in the kill zone. So how would you mark those open lanes? One thing it could be is you put markings on trees or stakes back here. The front side of those trees, the enemy's not going to see anything. But on the back side, maybe you'll have just a little scrape or something on it, and you know, hey, I need to go between these two trees here because there's a scrape on this one, scrape on this one. I need to go directly between them. And obviously, you also let everybody know which lane they're supposed to go down when they assault forward. They need to know that, hey, you two go through the lane here, you two go through the lane here. This will take time to set up. That's why it's not a hasty. This is not something you do quickly. You could, if you do it with a hasty, maybe what you have then, you have two people string communications wire between tree to tree to tree to tree, and then everybody else is sitting in the ambush. You don't put any stakes in the ground. Those two that are putting in the wire then pull back, get in their position on the ambush. And as your enemy comes forward, they hit that communications wire, they get tripped. They automatically put their arms out to keep from falling, so they drop their weapon as they're going down. They automatically try to push themselves up into the push-up position to get up off the ground, to get back in the fight, get their footing underneath them, and that's when you take them out with weapons fire. This is just one way you can counter or halt a counterattack after an ambush. If you got other ways that could help people out, go ahead, post them in the comments. Let's get a discussion going on this. What things have you been taught over the years to make your ambushes more effective? What ways have you been taught to counter the counterattack by your target inside the kill zone? Let's get the discussion going. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.